The officer's interrogation was aggressive. He demanded identification and acted as though the gentleman had committed a transgression. Every inquiry was tinged with suspicion, and every inflection carried prejudice. What the officer failed to grasp was that this individual was no ordinary person. He was an instructor for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, possessing comprehensive training and complete authorization to be present. The interaction was fraught with tension, unjust, and recorded by a body camera, vividly illustrating how rapidly preconceptions can transform a simple stop into an act of harassment. Before we proceed further, please share your location in the world from which you are viewing this and ensure you subscribe, because tomorrow's narrative is one you absolutely will not want to miss. Officer Daniel Reynolds, aged 38, had a history that the department had never fully addressed. He was recognized for stopping individuals who did not conform to the typical residents of the neighborhood, and curiously, these stops invariably targeted the same demographic of inhabitant. He had received 2 warnings for profiling, yet these admonishments did nothing to alter his conduct. He held the conviction that evasiveness implied concealment, and anyone who appeared overly professional was merely attempting too hard to appear legitimate. Consequently, upon observing a black man in a suit walking down a residential street, he reacted instantaneously. There was no observed crime, no reported incident, only his own presumption. He exited his patrol vehicle and immediately commenced an interrogation. "Where is your identification? Let me see it." The individual he stopped, Marcus Turner, was 42 years old. He possessed a calm demeanor, a steady bearing, and an aura that suggested he was involved in something significant. He displayed no nervousness, no hesitation, no haste. He responded to the officer directly. "I reside here." Reynolds dismissed this statement without pause. "Identification, now." Marcus reached for his wallet slowly. His movements were trained, controlled, deliberate. He was not anxious. He was precise. He handed over the identification without any additional words, without offering explanations of who he was. He never began with, "I am an FBI instructor," because it was unnecessary. His training dictated that he remain composed and allow actions to speak for themselves. Reynolds held the identification as if it were already counterfeit. He barely glanced at the name before shaking his head. "Federal instructor? Really? That's your story for today?" "It's the truth," Marcus replied. Reynolds chuckled softly. "You expect me to believe you train federal agents?" Marcus did not argue. He did not challenge the tone. He observed quietly because he recognized this pattern far more clearly than Reynolds comprehended. He had instructed officers younger than Reynolds on how prejudice warps judgment. Now he was witnessing it unfold in real time. Reynolds stepped closer, annoyed by Marcus's tranquility. "Hands where I can see them." "They are visible," Marcus responded. "Higher." Marcus raised them slightly. Not out of fear, but out of a desire for control. Compliance without capitulation. "You're making this more difficult than necessary," Reynolds stated. "I am cooperating," Marcus replied. Reynolds disliked the steady tone. He tapped his radio. "Dispatch, I have a subject with potentially false identification. Running it now." Marcus remained still. He was not surprised. Not by the call, not by the accusation, not by the tone. He had trained hundreds of federal recruits on how quickly situations can escalate when an officer decides someone is suspicious before the stop even commences. He did not move, did not speak, did not shift. He simply watched Reynolds attempt to discover something that was not present. Reynolds scrutinized him from head to toe. "People don't walk around here in suits." Marcus looked at him evenly. "People don't walk around here in suits, or people like me don't." Reynolds paused for a brief moment, long enough to betray the truth. He did not answer directly. He merely murmured, "You understand what I mean." Marcus offered no reply. It was unnecessary. The prejudice was already being recorded. Reynolds clutched the identification more tightly, still attempting to twist the situation into something criminal. "If this comes back as false, we will have a significant problem." Marcus maintained his gaze on him, steady and controlled. "Verify it." The radio was mere seconds away from responding. Reynolds waited, still convinced the identification would not match the man standing before him, and Marcus, patient, trained, and fully authorized to be precisely where he was, waited with complete composure, because unlike Reynolds, he understood that the true issue was not the identification, it was the officer holding it. The instant Officer Reynolds leaned towards the body camera, his jaw tightening and his flashlight gripped as if it were a weapon rather than a tool, the tension snapped into sharp relief. And precisely in that uncomfortable silence, Marcus Cole finally chose to speak. Marcus was not raising his voice. He was not acting aggressively. He was not even matching Reynolds' tone. He simply spoke in a calm, steady manner that made the officer even more uneasy. "Officer," Marcus said, "I have already provided you with my identification. You may process it. You may verify everything." Reynolds remained motionless. He simply stared, tapping the side of the patrol car with his finger as if needing an outlet for his escalating frustration. People in that neighborhood knew Reynolds for that tapping. It wasn't a mere habit. It was a warning signal. "You think I'm unintelligent?" Reynolds snapped. "People forge identification every single day, and a suit, a luxury SUV in this area. Do you expect me to believe this is all ordinary?" Marcus exhaled slowly. "I live here. You are standing directly in front of my residence." The body camera clearly captured the officer glancing backward at the house situated immediately behind him. He disliked being corrected, and even when the truth was readily apparent, he was not prepared to accept it. Reynolds stepped forward once more. "You know what? Step out of the vehicle. We will resolve this properly." Marcus did not move immediately, not out of defiance, but out of profound disappointment. He had instructed law enforcement officers nationwide on how to manage encounters of this nature. He was well versed in de-escalation procedures, in federal protocols. He knew precisely what Reynolds should have said and what he ought to have avoided. Instead, this officer was doing everything incorrectly. Marcus eventually unfastened his seatbelt and exited the vehicle. The body camera clearly showed the suit he was wearing. Immaculate, professional, not ostentatious. He was not dressed to impress anyone. He had simply returned home from his place of employment. Reynolds circled him as if searching for non-existent trouble. "So, tell me," the officer said, "where precisely do you work, and do not fabricate?" Marcus maintained a level tone. "Quantico." Reynolds squinted. "Quantico? Seriously, is that the most convincing falsehood you can offer?" "It is not a fabrication." "Oh, right. You're some high-ranking agent who flies around thwarting terrorism and resides in the suburbs. Give me a break." Marcus looked him directly in the eyes. Not with anger, but with a type of calm assurance that only served to further irritate the officer. "I did not state I was an agent," Marcus replied. "I stated I work in Quantico. There is a distinction." Reynolds smirked. He believed he had caught him in a lie. He believed the distinction was proof that Marcus was faltering. "Oh, so you're altering your narrative now, attempting to refine it." Marcus shook his head once. "No, I am being precise." The officer leaned closer. "And what precisely do you instruct at Quantico, given your adherence to precision?" "Federal use of force protocols, tactical judgment, bias recognition." That final statement struck Reynolds more forcefully than he had anticipated. He stepped back for the first time. The camera captured the hesitation in his eyes, a faint flicker of doubt warring against the ego that had fueled this entire stop. However, rather than admitting he might be mistaken, Reynolds delved deeper. "Anyone can claim that," he muttered. "Words hold no significance. I will trust the system, and the system invariably apprehends deceivers." Marcus offered no response. It was unnecessary. His silence troubled the officer even more. Reynolds returned to his vehicle to process the identification. He took longer than usual, not because the system was slow, but because the truth appearing on the screen caused his stomach to plummet. The federal clearance, the agency email, the employment classification, the official verification, everything aligned perfectly. He could not deny any of it. The body camera captured him rubbing his forehead with his palm, a full second of frustration as reality forcefully collided with the assumptions he had meticulously constructed over the preceding 8 minutes. When he finally walked back towards Marcus, his confidence had vanished, but his arrogance was still stubbornly clinging to existence. "So," Reynolds said stiffly, "it appears your account is accurate." Marcus did not say, "I told you so." He did not smirk. He did not gloat. That was not his nature. He simply inquired, "Are we finished?" Reynolds' jaw tightened once more. "Not quite. I still need to understand why you reacted as you did when I initiated the stop." Marcus blinked once. "You approached my vehicle shouting. You informed me I did not belong in my own neighborhood. You demanded identification before even explaining the reason for the stop. That is precisely why I reacted calmly. Escalating the situation would have worsened matters for both of us." The officer offered no response. None whatsoever. He shifted his weight, stared at the ground, and then mumbled something about routine checks. Marcus spoke again, his tone remaining calm. "Officer, this was not a routine procedure, and you are aware of that." A full 3 seconds of silence ensued. Reynolds finally clicked his pen shut. "You are permitted to depart." Marcus nodded once and returned to his vehicle. The body camera recorded him fastening his seatbelt, starting the engine, and pulling into his own driveway, situated merely 15 feet from where he had been stopped. Reynolds remained standing in the street, observing him, and the camera captured the expression on his face, the realization that the man he had attempted to humiliate had seen through him from beginning to end. Marcus did not slam his car door. He did not cast a resentful glance back. He simply entered his home, leaving the officer alone with the truth he was unwilling to confront. The same truth that the body camera would soon reveal to everyone else. Reynolds' composure evaporated the moment he saw the credentials. The body camera clearly captured it, his stiff posture, his hands gripping the radio, his eyes darting between Marcus and the identification. But instead of stepping back, admitting an error, or de-escalating, he attempted to regain control by intensifying his pressure. "Keep your hands visible," he commanded, even though Marcus's hands were calm, open, and clearly in view. Marcus remained motionless. He did not raise his voice. He stayed exactly where he had been from the outset, composed, allowing every word, every gesture, and every second of tension to speak for itself. Reynolds demanded a second form of identification, then requested proof of residency. "Why would someone like you even reside here?" he snapped. Every question was laced with disbelief, hostility, and bias. Marcus maintained his composure. "I've already provided you with all the necessary documentation," he stated steadily. "I expect you to adhere to protocol, not assumptions." The officer's face, though not visible on camera, betrayed the panic Marcus had witnessed countless times in training sessions. His jaw tightened, his fingers tapped the side of the car in a nervous tick. He attempted to improvise a narrative. "Someone reported suspicious activity," Reynolds muttered. But even he recognized the feebleness of the claim. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly, calm yet piercing. "Please, provide the call reference number. There is no legitimate basis for this stop otherwise." Reynolds faltered. The body camera captured him looking around, searching for witnesses, seeking an escape route, and finding none. It was at that moment that a neighbor emerged onto the sidewalk. An elderly woman carrying groceries paused and looked directly at the unfolding scene. "Is everything all right?" she inquired. "He lives right there. He's been here for years." 2 more neighbors appeared, casually observing from their driveways. Each one confirmed Marcus's presence in the neighborhood without hesitation. Reynolds' excuse evaporated. The narrative of suspicious activity lacked any foundation. Marcus did not escalate. He did not raise his voice. He simply stated, "This stop lacks any legal basis. I am fully cooperating, and I expect the same level of professionalism from you." The officer's tension intensified. His attempts to control the situation were failing, exposed by every detail Marcus meticulously documented in real time. Reynolds attempted a recovery with a weak, almost mumbled remark. "We're merely performing our duty." Marcus disregarded the comment. He calmly reached into his suit pocket and retrieved his phone, initiating a call on speakerphone to his direct supervisor at the bureau. The camera captured every second of this action. The officer's eyes widened as he realized the call was being placed directly to someone who could hold him accountable. "You haven't contacted anyone," Marcus stated, his voice soft but firm. "You are attempting to salvage your reputation." Reynolds was left without a response. His subsequent actions were defensive. He took a slight step back, mumbling something about routine checks. Marcus maintained his composure, meticulously documenting every word, every gesture. "Officer, the identification was valid. The address has been confirmed. The procedure for stops of this nature is clear. Nevertheless, you failed to adhere to it. This entire encounter is being recorded." The neighbors watched silently, fully aware of the officer's misjudgment, and the body camera captured their presence. Reynolds glanced at them nervously, his posture revealing the realization that his assumptions had been completely laid bare. Then, Marcus plainly stated the facts for the record. "You stopped me without justification. You questioned my legitimacy based on my appearance, and you escalated the situation unnecessarily. This constitutes harassment and will be reported." Reynolds stood frozen. For the first time, the authority he believed he possessed had entirely dissipated. The body camera recorded every second of his hesitation, the internal struggle of his ego against the undeniable truth. Finally, Reynolds muttered, "You are free to go." Marcus did not react theatrically. He simply nodded and turned towards his home. Composed, confident, and fully cognizant that every step he took was being documented for the purpose of accountability. Reynolds remained stationary in the street, exposed, frustrated, and comprehending the gravity of what had just transpired. His assumptions, his prejudice, and his arrogance had all been captured on camera. No edits, no justifications, no possibility of rewriting the encounter. Marcus entered his home, leaving the officer alone with the repercussions of his actions. The neighbors retreated back indoors, and the quiet of the street was restored, but the body camera held all the evidence. Every unjust assumption, every aggressive utterance, every failed attempt to dominate the situation was meticulously recorded. The encounter concluded in mere minutes, but the ramifications for Reynolds were far from over. Marcus had not only protected himself by remaining calm and professional, but had also ensured that accountability would inevitably follow. The camera fades as Marcus closes his door. The officer stands silently in the street, the full weight of what had just occurred pressing down upon him. Reynolds remained rooted in the street, his hands trembling slightly, his posture rigid. The realization that everything Marcus had stated was accurate bore down on him. The body camera meticulously captured every second, his hesitation, his frustration, his futile attempts to regain control. He had anticipated this stop to be a mere formality, believing he could intimidate someone he assumed did not belong. And now he was exposed. Marcus, meanwhile, had moved inside his residence merely a few steps away, still calm, still composed. But he did not cease documenting. He reached into his suit pocket again, opened his phone, and began recording a brief statement summarizing the encounter. Every word, every fact was captured professionally, methodically, and without emotional bias. This was not merely for the present moment, it was for accountability. Reynolds shifted uncomfortably. He attempted to adjust his tone. I was merely doing my job," he muttered, the words sounding hollow even to himself. Marcus did not respond verbally. He simply spoke clearly into his phone, detailing the officer's actions, the timeline, the unnecessary escalation, and the presence of witnesses. The neighbors who had emerged earlier were still visible through the camera's lens. They had witnessed the stop. They had heard the assumptions. They had observed the officer harassing a man who was entirely within his rights. Reynolds glanced around, realizing the public nature the moment had acquired. His credibility, his authority, even his reputation, all were now vulnerable. The body cam recorded every second of his awkward movements, the way he shifted his weight, and the slight tremor in his voice. Marcus kept his statement concise. "Officer, this encounter lacked any legal basis. I complied fully. You repeatedly questioned me based solely on my appearance. That constitutes harassment. It has been documented." The officer swallowed hard. His usual confidence, the arrogance he relied upon to justify his stops, had vanished. For the first time, he understood that being right in his own mind was insufficient. Every word, every action, every assumption could now be verified on camera. He mumbled something about procedures and routine checks, but even to himself, the words lacked substance. The presence of the neighbors, Marcus's calm professionalism, and the body camera footage rendered excuses impossible. Marcus then lowered his phone, looked directly at Reynolds, and firmly stated the concluding point. "This incident will be formally reported. Your actions, your assumptions, and your harassment are all on record. Accountability will follow." Reynolds offered no response. There was nothing left to say. The body cam captured his silence, the weight of exposure pressing down upon him. He was ensnared by the consequences of every assumption, every prejudiced judgment, every attempt to intimidate someone simply for appearing different or affluent in their own neighborhood. Marcus turned fully towards his home. Still calm, still composed, every movement deliberate. The neighbors retreated back to their porches and driveways, and the quiet of the street returned. Reynolds remained frozen, a figure of authority rendered powerless by his own misconduct. The camera recorded the full aftermath. The scene concluded not with confrontation, not with dramatic escalation, but with clear, undeniable accountability. The officer's actions were thoroughly documented. Witnesses were present, and Marcus's composure ensured that the narrative would be accurately conveyed. And as Marcus entered his home, the camera captured the truth. Professionalism, calm under pressure, and standing firm against bias always possess power. Reynolds was left alone in the street, a visual testament that assumptions devoid of facts can unravel in mere seconds. The footage concludes with Marcus's door closing, the timestamp still visible in the corner, the sunny afternoon continuing as if normal. However, the moment and what it represents will not be forgotten. If you believe that everyone deserves to be treated with fairness, irrespective of their appearance or where they reside, please click the like button, leave a comment, and ensure you subscribe, because the next story demonstrates just how crucial accountability truly is.